Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. China's military parade signals shifting global alignments. House Republicans intensify push for Epstein file release. U.S. military kills 11 in strike against alleged Venezuelan drug cartel. Trump's potential National Guard deployment sparks legal and political debate. Trump dismisses AI-generated video, addresses health speculation. Google Antitrust ruling outlines key outcomes and implications. Gaza conflict sees divergent plans and escalating offensive. Growing concerns over Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s leadership at HHS. Global concerns mount over U.S. Fed independence. Trump escalates spending battle, challenging congressional power. Trump's tariffs face potential refund crisis. Appeals court blocks Trump's use of Alien Enemies Act for deportations. FTC Commissioner reinstated following appeals court ruling. Trump announces Space Command move to Alabama, reversing Biden-era decision. Democrats increasingly sound alarm bells over Trump's potential election interference. China's military parade signals shifting global alignments. China's recent military parade in Tiananmen Square marked a significant moment, showcasing advanced weaponry and signaling a growing shift in global alliances. The event, held to commemorate 80 years since China's victory over Japan, featured the unveiling of new military assets, including the Dongfeng 5 intercontinental strategic nuclear missile, capable of targeting continental U.S. The parade underscored China's rapid military modernization and its increasing influence on the world stage. The event also highlighted the deepening strategic partnership between China, Russia, and North Korea. Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met on the sidelines of the parade, solidifying their alliance and discussing North Korea's continued support for Russia's war in Ukraine, with estimates suggesting around 4,000 North Korean troops have been killed or wounded. Putin invited Kim to visit Russia. Western officials expressed concern over this alignment, noting that North Korea's military contributions were a key element of the strategic shift. The parade demonstrated China's growing military capabilities and its willingness to challenge the existing international order. The parade's significance extended beyond the display of weaponry. It represented a deliberate effort by China to project an image of strength and assertiveness, as well as to counter perceived Western dominance. The event underscored China's increasing engagement in international affairs and its ambition to play a more prominent role in global security. During the parade, air raid sirens sounded in Kyiv and elsewhere in Ukraine, as Russia launched a barrage of drones and cruise missiles. This action highlighted the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the potential for escalation. The event served as a stark reminder of the geopolitical tensions at play and the complex challenges facing the international community. House Republicans intensify push for Epstein file release. The release of Jeffrey Epstein-related documents by the Justice Department has triggered a significant political push within the House of Representatives, primarily led by Republican members seeking greater transparency and investigation into the case. The core issue revolves around the perceived withholding of information by government agencies, particularly the Justice Department. Several key developments have emerged. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is spearheading efforts to compel a full House vote on releasing the Epstein files, despite resistance from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who prioritizes protecting the privacy of victims. Republican members, including Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, are actively collecting signatures to support Massie's resolution. The release of the 33,000-page document set has been largely deemed unproductive by Democrats, with 97% of the material already publicly available. Despite this, the focus remains on securing a full House vote to force the release of the remaining documents. House Republicans held an emotional closed-door meeting with 6 Epstein victims, who expressed frustration with the limited information available and demanded a more comprehensive investigation. Speaker McCarthy emphasized the importance of protecting the privacy of the victims while acknowledging the public's desire for transparency. Thomas Massie is actively pushing for a full House vote, arguing that the current situation is unacceptable and that the public deserves access to all available information. He has garnered support from several Republican colleagues, including Ro Khanna, who are willing to sign his resolution. Despite McCarthy's reservations, Republican members are determined to pursue a full House vote, highlighting the political pressure they are facing from their constituents and the broader public. The situation underscores a significant divide within the House Republican caucus regarding the handling of the Epstein case and the pursuit of transparency. The release has ignited a political firestorm, with Republicans determined to hold government agencies accountable and ensure a thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding Epstein's crimes. U.S. military kills 11 in strike against alleged Venezuelan drug cartel. That President Donald Trump announced that the United States military conducted a precision strike in the southern Caribbean, resulting in the deaths of 11 individuals linked to the Venezuelan drug cartel, Trendiaragua. The operation, described as a kinetic strike, targeted a drug-carrying vessel departing from Venezuela, a route increasingly utilized for transporting narcotics into the United States. The U.S. military, operating under the Southcom Area of Responsibility, identified the group as a designated foreign terrorist organization, controlled by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, citing their involvement in drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and acts of violence. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed the lethal strike and emphasized the ongoing U.S. effort to combat drug cartels flooding American streets. He highlighted the strategic importance of disrupting this supply chain and reiterated the administration's commitment to confronting these organizations. The operation represents a significant escalation in the Trump administration's approach to countering drug trafficking, building upon previous designations of Trendiaragua as a terrorist organization and increasing the reward for Maduro's arrest to $50 million. The U.S. military deployed substantial assets in the Caribbean and Latin America, a move that drew strong condemnation from Maduro, who vowed to resist threats and maintain maximum pressure. The operation underscores a heightened strategic focus on disrupting the flow of drugs from Venezuela. Senior defense officials confirmed the strike as a precision strike, while acknowledging the ongoing efforts to combat drug cartels. The administration's actions reflect a deliberate strategy to utilize military force against organizations deemed a threat to national security, despite the complexities surrounding international law and potential ramifications. The incident highlights the increasing tension between the U.S. and Venezuela, fueled by concerns over drug trafficking and regional security. Trump's potential National Guard deployment sparks legal and political debate. Recent news articles detail escalating concerns surrounding President Trump's potential deployment of National Guard troops into U.S. cities, primarily focusing on Chicago, raising significant legal and political ramifications. The core issue centers on Trump's asserted authority to federalize the National Guard for domestic law enforcement purposes, a power largely constrained by the Posse Comitatus Act, which generally prohibits the use of military personnel for domestic law enforcement. A key legal challenge emerged following Trump's attempt to deploy National Guard troops in Los Angeles to quell protests against immigration raids, resulting in a federal judge ruling that the situation did not constitute an emergency, justifying such action. This decision highlights the legal complexities surrounding federal intervention in state and local law enforcement matters. The potential deployment to Chicago has ignited considerable debate. While Trump has repeatedly voiced his intention to utilize the National Guard to address perceived crime issues, legal experts argue this would likely violate the Posse Comitatus Act and potentially undermine the authority of state and local officials. The Chicago City Council has responded with an executive order aimed at preventing any unauthorized deployment of military or Department of Homeland Security personnel. Furthermore, the prospect of military involvement has heightened anxieties among residents, particularly in neighborhoods experiencing high levels of gun violence. Many residents express fear and distrust, questioning the effectiveness and appropriateness of deploying military personnel to address community safety concerns. Several state and local officials have strongly opposed the idea, emphasizing the importance of respecting the boundaries between military and civilian authorities. They argue that utilizing the National Guard for domestic law enforcement would set a dangerous precedent and could exacerbate tensions within communities. The situation underscores a broader legal and political battle over the scope of presidential power and the role of the military in domestic affairs. The legal challenges and public debate surrounding this issue are likely to continue as Trump explores avenues to address crime and maintain law and order. The legal precedent established by the Los Angeles case will undoubtedly influence the outcome of any future attempts to federalize the National Guard for domestic purposes. Trump dismisses AI-generated video, addresses health speculation. President Donald Trump responded to viral speculation regarding a black bag being tossed from the White House, dismissing it as an AI-generated fake and expressing concern about the increasing realism of such videos. He questioned the authenticity of the video, citing the fortified nature of the windows and the difficulty of creating a convincing illusion. Despite initial reports suggesting a connection to ongoing renovations, experts, including University of California, Berkeley professor Hanny Farid, refuted the AI claim, citing physically consistent shadows and movement. Simultaneously, the White House forcefully pushed back on broader health concerns surrounding Trump's well-being. triggered by visible bruising on his hand. Trump spent the weekend at his Virginia golf club, breaking a week-long public absence that fueled the speculation. He insisted he had been very active during the period and brushed off concerns about his health, attributing the bruising to aspirin use and minor soft tissue irritation. The White House highlighted Trump's age and frequent handshaking as contributing factors to the bruising. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, emphasized Trump's tremendous amount of energy and criticized the made-up speculation as being pushed by Democratic activists. Social media played a significant role in amplifying the health concerns. Online conspiracy theories exploded across platforms like X, Bluesky, and TikTok, fueled by memes, speculation, and misinformation. Individuals created content suggesting Trump's potential demise, often accompanied by jokes and references to elaborate funeral plans. The situation was further complicated by political commentary and reciprocal jabs. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker responded to Trump's inflammatory remarks on Truth Social, prompting a wave of online debate. Political scientists noted the parallels to similar instances of scrutiny surrounding other leaders, particularly in authoritarian contexts. Trump's team actively countered the narratives, emphasizing his continued activity and dismissing the concerns as a distraction. The White House utilized traditional media outlets to disseminate accurate information and refute the misinformation circulating online. Ultimately, the episode highlighted the challenges of managing public perception in the digital age and the potential for misinformation to spread rapidly. Google antitrust ruling key outcomes and implications. The U.S. government's landmark antitrust case against Google, initiated in 2020, concluded with a ruling that largely favored the tech giant, though with significant modifications. Judge Amit Mehta determined Google operates as a monopolist in online search, but avoided the drastic measure of forcing a sale of its Chrome browser or Android operating system. This outcome, influenced significantly by the rapid emergence of generative artificial intelligence, AI, represents a victory for Google and a setback for the Justice Department's initial aggressive approach. The core of the ruling centers on restricting Google's ability to enter into exclusive distribution agreements. Google is now prohibited from securing default placement of its services, including Search, Chrome, the Google Assistant, and Gemini on devices through exclusive contracts. This addresses concerns that Google leveraged its dominance to unfairly advantage its own products over competitors. However, Google retains the right to pay partners for distribution, a provision deemed necessary to avoid crippling the ecosystem. A key factor in the ruling's outcome was Judge Mehta's assessment of the evolving technological landscape. He acknowledged the transformative impact of AI, stating that unlike the typical case where the court's job is to resolve a dispute based on historic facts, here the court is asked to gaze into a crystal ball and look to the future. This highlighted the difficulty of predicting the long-term effects of AI on the competitive dynamics of the search market. The decision reflects a nuanced understanding of the tech industry's shift. While Google remains a dominant force in search, the ruling seeks to prevent it from maintaining that dominance through restrictive agreements. The Justice Department's initial demand for a Chrome sale was deemed a poor fit for the case. The ruling has significant implications for partnerships between Google and device manufacturers, particularly Apple. While Google cannot secure exclusive deals, the existing agreement with Apple regarding default search placement is expected to continue. Furthermore, the case underscores the growing importance of AI in the antitrust landscape. The judge's consideration of AI's potential impact suggests a broader shift in how courts evaluate antitrust cases in the age of rapidly evolving technologies. The outcome is viewed as a win for both Apple and Google, with potential for further AI-driven collaborations. The case highlights the ongoing struggle between tech giants and regulators as they navigate the complexities of competition in the digital era. Gaza conflict, divergent plans, and escalating offensive. The ongoing conflict in Gaza is characterized by competing international visions for its future and a rapidly intensifying Israeli military offensive. While Western nations largely support Palestinian statehood and a two-state solution, the Israeli government, under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is pursuing a strategy of complete Israeli control, including plans for a Riviera in Gaza. This contrasts sharply with the UN's warnings of a beyond catastrophic impact of a full-scale offensive. Thousands of Israeli reservists have begun reporting for duty as the IDF pushes into Gaza City, considered a stronghold of Hamas. Ground forces are supported by heavy aerial and artillery bombardment, resulting in over 50 Palestinian deaths, primarily in Gaza City hospitals. Residents are being ordered to evacuate south, but nearly 1 million remain. The conflict centers around the fate of approximately 48 Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Families are demanding immediate action and a ceasefire deal, fearing the offensive will endanger the hostages. Despite a current proposal for a 60-day truce involving the release of half the hostages, Netanyahu insists on a comprehensive agreement encompassing the disarmament of Hamas. IDF Chief of Staff Gen Al-Zamir has vehemently opposed the Gaza City offensive, warning it poses a significant risk to the hostages and could lead to the establishment of a military government. However, Netanyahu remains committed to achieving a decisive victory, with Zamir declaring the IDF is preparing for nothing less than decisive victory. The situation is further complicated by reports of angry exchanges between Zamir and government ministers regarding the offensive strategy. The conflict highlights the urgent need for a negotiated solution to secure the release of the hostages and mitigate the devastating humanitarian consequences for the civilian population of Gaza. Growing concerns over Robert F. Kennedy's leadership at HHS. A chorus of criticism is escalating against Health and Human Services, CHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., with former Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC leaders, current HHS employees, and members of Congress voicing serious concerns about his leadership and policies. The core of the controversy centers around perceived detrimental impacts on public health, specifically regarding vaccine access, research funding, and the direction of the CDC. 9 former CDC bosses have issued an open letter in the New York Times, asserting that Kennedy's 7-month tenure has been unlike anything our country had ever experienced, citing actions including restricting vaccine efforts, firing thousands of healthcare workers, and facilitating the removal of CDC Director Susan Monterez. This removal, triggered by Monterez's refusal to sign off on potential vaccine restrictions, sparked a wave of resignations and further fueled the criticism. Over 1,000 current and former HHS employees have demanded Kennedy's resignation, arguing his policies put the nation's health at risk. They accuse him of manipulating public health information, appointing political ideologues to influential vaccine policy roles, and rescinding emergency use authorizations for COVID-19 vaccines without adequate data. Kennedy, in turn, defends his actions, claiming the CDC was broken and that his reforms, including replacing members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, are aimed at eliminating conflicts of interest and bureaucratic complacency. He plans to testify before the Senate Committee on Finance on Thursday, discussing the president's 2026 healthcare agenda. Several prominent lawmakers, including Senator Patty Murray, Senator Bernie Sanders, Representative Rosa DeLauro, and Senator Bill Cassidy, have publicly called for Kennedy's resignation, citing his skepticism regarding vaccines and advocacy of conspiracy theories. Senator Cassidy, in particular, has demanded postponement of the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices meeting due to concerns about its agenda and lack of scientific process. The situation highlights a significant rift within the federal government and raises serious questions about the future of public health policy under Kennedy's leadership. The ongoing pressure suggests a sustained challenge to his authority and a growing belief that his policies are detrimental to the nation's well-being. Global concerns mount over U.S. Fed independence. Recent developments have sparked significant international concern regarding the independence of the U.S. Federal Reserve. Following persistent threats from President Donald Trump, Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey expressed very serious concerns, labeling the situation a very dangerous road to go down, echoing similar warnings from European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde. Lagarde emphasized the very worrying consequences for global economic stability if the Fed were to be compelled to respond to presidential directives. Trump's repeated criticisms of Fed Chair Jerome Powell, demanding lower interest rates despite the Fed's cautious approach, have fueled these anxieties. The core issue revolves around Trump's desire for substantial interest rate cuts, contrasting sharply with the Fed's measured response. Bailey stressed the Fed's crucial role in maintaining economic stability, allowing governments to make informed policy decisions. He warned against political interference in central bank operations, characterizing the current situation as a perilous deviation from established norms. The Bank of England's own monetary policy is now subject to increased uncertainty. While the bank has previously cut interest rates from 5.25% to 4%, future decisions are becoming more ambiguous. The next decision is scheduled for September 18th. Bailey acknowledged considerably more doubt regarding the pace of future rate cuts, citing ongoing inflationary pressures. Furthermore, the potential impact of Trump's tariffs on Chinese exports is being closely monitored. While initial data suggests tariffs haven't triggered inflationary pressure, Bailey cautioned that a fragmented global economy and renewed supply chain disruptions could reverse this trend. He noted that an increase in Chinese exports due to tariffs could potentially decrease prices, presenting a complex and evolving situation. The bank remains vigilant, assessing both domestic and international economic factors to determine the appropriate course of action. Trump escalates spending battle, challenging congressional power. President Donald Trump is intensifying his efforts to undermine Congress's authority over the federal budget, sparking a high-stakes confrontation with lawmakers as the government faces a September 30th funding deadline. The administration's move to cancel $4.9 billion in foreign aid, dubbed a pocket rescission, has been widely criticized as illegal and a unilateral attempt to seize control of taxpayer money. Congressional Democrats, led by House Appropriations Chair Rosa DeLauro, view this as an unlawful stealing of taxpayer money and a partisan maneuver. To date, the administration has withheld an estimated $425 billion in congressionally approved spending across various programs, including biomedical research, state and local crime fighting, and energy initiatives. This significant amount underscores the scale of the administration's challenge to established budgetary norms. Legal battles are underway, with courts initially halting some of the administration's cuts. But recent Supreme Court rulings have largely favored the White House, allowing the rollback of NIH grants and the CFPB's operations. The administration, spearheaded by Budget Chief Russell Vought, is employing a strategy of circumventing Congress, refusing to allocate funds approved by the legislative branch, and demanding OMB sign-off on spending decisions. This has created a significant bottleneck, effectively placing federal agencies under gunpoint to follow the White House's directives. Despite these challenges, the GOP-controlled House has largely acquiesced to the administration's actions, including supporting a full-year continuing resolution that locks in prior year funding levels. This resolution also included $3 billion in emergency funding that OMB refused to allocate, which Democrats argued was illegal. House Speaker Mike Johnson has further emboldened the administration by arguing against congressional oversight. The administration's actions are not new, having intensified since Trump's first term, but the current strategy represents a more aggressive attempt to reclaim budgetary control. Legal challenges have been a key factor in slowing the administration's efforts, but the Supreme Court's recent rulings suggest a shift in the balance of power. As the September 30th deadline approaches, the outcome of the funding negotiations remains uncertain, with Democrats determined to resist the administration's efforts and Republicans largely aligned with the White House's strategy. The administration's actions are viewed as a significant departure from established norms, and the legal and political ramifications of this power struggle are substantial. Trump's tariffs face potential refund crisis. The Trump administration's sweeping tariffs, implemented during his second term, are facing a critical legal challenge with significant financial implications for American businesses and the U.S. economy. A federal appeals court ruled that Trump unlawfully used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act (IEPA) to impose these duties, leading to over $210 billion in tariff payments by businesses. The administration is appealing to the Supreme Court, with a potential decision that could trigger massive refunds. If the Supreme Court upholds the lower court's decision, the Treasury Department would be obligated to return the tariff revenue it has collected. However, the process of administering these refunds remains uncertain. Businesses are already proactively filing administrative protests with U.S. Customs and Border Protection to prevent full settlement of tariff payments, hoping to facilitate a refund. Investment firms are also approaching businesses seeking to acquire stakes in potential refunds. The potential refunds pose a significant risk to the U.S. economy. The Treasury's accumulation of tariff revenue has reduced the national debt. Reversing the tariffs would necessitate increased borrowing, potentially leading to higher Treasury bond yields and increased borrowing costs across the economy. This could trigger concerns of inflation, echoing anxieties from the Biden administration's policies. Furthermore, if the Supreme Court rules against Trump, the administration will need to cease collecting tariffs. The administration is exploring administrative refund processes, requiring importers to affirmatively request a refund. This uncertainty is causing anxiety among businesses eager for immediate liquidity. The situation is further complicated by the ongoing efforts to influence the Federal Reserve. Trump's attempts to replace Fed Governor Lisa Cook with a loyalist could lead to lower interest rates, potentially reigniting inflationary pressures. The prospect of massive tariff refunds combined with lower interest rates could revive memories of the Biden administration's inflationary policies. The potential for increased Treasury bond issuance and higher yields is already being observed, with the 30-year Treasury bond briefly hitting 5%. The administration is attempting to mitigate the risks through legal action, but the economic consequences of a Supreme Court ruling remain a major concern. Appeals Court blocks Trump's use of Alien Enemies Act for deportations. A divided federal appeals court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, has ruled that President Donald Trump's use of the 18th century Alien Enemies Act to rapidly deport alleged members of the Venezuelan gang, Trendy Aragua, is unlawful, effectively halting its use in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. This decision represents a significant legal setback for Trump's administration and likely paves the way for a Supreme Court review. The court's ruling stems from the administration's claim that the gang's presence constituted a predatory incursion or invasion, a justification not supported by the evidence. The court's opinion, authored by Judges Leslie Southwick and Irma Carrillo Ramirez, found that the administration's actions did not meet the criteria for invoking the Alien Enemies Act, which is traditionally reserved for wartime situations involving foreign invasion or hostility. The court emphasized that simply encouraging foreign nationals to illegally enter the country does not constitute a modern-day invasion. While the administration initially provided migrants with only 7 days' notice before deportation, complying with a Supreme Court directive, the appeals court found this insufficient, arguing that 21 days' notice would be more appropriate, particularly for detainees lacking legal representation. This dissent was joined only by Ramirez, a Biden appointee. Judge Andrew Oldham, a Trump appointee, dissented, arguing that the majority was imposing an overly stringent standard on the president, forcing him to present a detailed factual case akin to a civil lawsuit. Oldham criticized the court for lacking intelligence briefings on the gang and expressed concern about judicial overreach in immigration matters. The court's decision has halted deportation efforts, which involved flying over 200 alleged gang members to El Salvador and subsequently returning 10 U.S. nationals in exchange. Since March, no further removals under Trump's proclamation have occurred. The Fifth Circuit's ruling is a crucial step in challenging the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act, and its impact will be closely watched as it potentially moves toward the Supreme Court. The legal battles surrounding the use of this antiquated law continue to highlight the complexities of immigration enforcement and the ongoing debate over presidential authority. FTC Commissioner reinstated following appeals court ruling. A federal appeals court issued a landmark ruling Tuesday ordering the temporary reinstatement of Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, a federal trade commission, the FTC commissioner fired by former President Donald Trump in March. The decision, a 2-1 vote, overturned a previous emergency stay issued by the court that had blocked Slaughter's return. The court's reasoning centered on controlling Supreme Court precedent from 1935, which safeguards FTC leadership from unilateral presidential dismissal. This ruling represents a significant setback for the Trump administration's efforts to diminish the power of several government watchdogs, including attempts to curtail the operations of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Slaughter's return follows a lawsuit alleging her illegal firing, citing violations of a statute and Supreme Court precedent. The legal challenge, initiated after her dismissal, highlights the ongoing battle between the Biden administration and the former president regarding the independence of regulatory agencies. The FTC, established 111 years ago, plays a crucial role in enforcing consumer protection and antitrust laws. Under current chair Lina Khan, the agency has been actively pursuing major cases, such as the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger and the Kroger acquisition of Albertsons. The composition of the FTC Commission is designed to ensure balance, with no more than 3 commissioners from the same political party. Bedoya, another commissioner fired by Trump, had previously announced his resignation from the FTC, setting an illegal firing. The White House defended Trump's actions, asserting that he acted legally, referencing previous Supreme Court approvals of agency head removals. However, the appeals court's decision firmly establishes the legal protections afforded to FTC leadership, reinforcing the agency's autonomy. The ruling underscores the importance of maintaining regulatory independence in the face of political pressure. The White House expressed anticipation of a third Supreme Court validation of their actions, while the FTC Commission is eager to resume its work on behalf of the American people. Trump announces Space Command move to Alabama, reversing Biden-era decision. President Donald Trump announced a reversal of the Biden administration's decision to keep the U.S. Space Command headquarters in Colorado Springs, Alabama. Trump stated that Huntsville, Alabama, was the initially selected location and criticized the Biden administration's obstruction. The move aims to consolidate Space Command, a joint command overseeing national security operations in space, including satellite management, missile warnings, and space surveillance. The decision stemmed from a 2018 reestablishment of Space Command by Trump, prioritizing mission synergy, infrastructure, cost, and community support with Huntsville identified as the most favorable option. However, the Biden administration sought to maintain the Colorado Springs location, citing recommendations from James Dickinson and concerns about potential disruptions to military readiness. The U.S. Air Force had previously endorsed the Huntsville move, estimating a $406 million cost advantage. The GAO reported ongoing personnel facilities and communications challenges within Space Command's Colorado Springs operations, contributing to the initial recommendation for relocation. The Biden administration's decision to retain Colorado Springs was met with criticism from Alabama officials, including Senator Tommy Tuberville, who vowed to continue fighting the move. Colorado Governor Jared Polis strongly opposed the decision, arguing it represented a waste of taxpayer dollars and an inconvenience for military families. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet and other state officials similarly expressed their determination to reverse the move, highlighting Space Command's long-standing presence and economic impact in Colorado Springs. The state's Chamber of Commerce emphasized the nearly $1 billion annual economic impact reliant on Space Command's headquarters in Colorado Springs. Huntsville, nicknamed Rocket City, has a long history as a center for aerospace activity, housing major defense contractors and NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Trump suggested that Space Command would replace personnel unwilling to relocate. The conflict underscores ongoing tensions between political parties regarding national security priorities and strategic locations for military operations, particularly in the context of increasing competition with China's space program. Both Colorado Springs and Huntsville have significant aerospace and defense industries, creating a complex and contested landscape for the future of Space Command. Democrats increasingly sound alarm bells over Trump's potential election interference. A growing concern among Democratic leaders is the possibility that President Donald Trump intends to manipulate or cancel future elections, fueled by his comments during a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During this meeting, Trump questioned the legality of holding elections during a period of martial law, stating that if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections. This sparked immediate alarm and accusations of a deliberate strategy to undermine democratic processes. Several prominent Democrats, including Illinois' Governor J.B. Pritzker and California Governor Gavin Newsom, have voiced serious concerns, suggesting Trump's actions are part of a calculated plan. Pritzker, citing Adolf Hitler's rise to power, argued that Trump's playbook mirrors historical patterns of authoritarianism, predicting the use of manufactured crisis and military intervention to justify canceling elections. Newsom echoed this sentiment, pointing to Trump's recent actions, such as expanding ICE's authority and attempting to restrict mail voting, as evidence of a broader strategy. The concerns extend beyond theoretical possibilities. Trump's past actions, including his attempts to overturn the 2020 election, his rhetoric surrounding January 6th, and his repeated flirtations with a third term, have heightened anxieties. He has also taken steps to expand his control over elections through executive actions. Several legal and political figures have weighed in. Rep. Yvette Clarke warned of Trump fantasizing about dragging America into war to justify canceling elections. Adrian Fontes, Arizona Secretary of State, highlighted a pattern of restricting mail voting as a precursor to potentially canceling elections. Larry Krasner, Philadelphia District Attorney, characterized Trump's actions as an attempt to create a pretext for canceling elections. Despite lacking the legal authority to directly cancel elections under federal law, Trump's past behavior and recent actions have raised serious concerns. A Public Religion Research Institute poll revealed that 49% of Americans believe there is a real danger in Trump using the presidency to become a dictator. The core concern is not necessarily a legal maneuver, but rather an extralegal strategy capitalizing on manufactured crises to maintain power. Democrats are urging the public to pay attention to these developments, fearing that Trump's actions could represent a fundamental threat to American democracy.